Be discreet. That's what I call it.
Yeah, so welcome again to the AMATIC 2019 webinar series, Developing Effective Co-requisite Course Designs and Support with Paul Nolting, PhD. And today's presentation is sponsored by the Developmental Mathematics Committee. Please note that the views expressed by the presenter are not necessarily the views of AMATIC, and any commercial products mentioned by the presenters are not endorsed by AMATIC. And McGraw-Hill Higher Education is proud to support the 2019 AMATIC webinar series. And now this is where Paul is going to switch to his slides by going to the share button.
Okay, so we'll do it. You ready?
Yeah, so if you haven't already welcomed Paul in the chat room, please feel free to do that now, and hopefully you can all see his screen now. But Paul told me that he is going to do a brief introduction of himself, so I will let Paul take it away.
Sounds good. Then I'll switch to a full screen. First, I'd like to thank the Developmental Education Committee, especially Paula, who I've been working with for years, asked me to present. John and I have worked on this before a couple years ago. I did several webinars, and I got to commend you for getting up early. I understand that because last week I was out at Washington State doing some work, and I'll talk about that later. And 2 weeks ago I was in California. So I am now back adjusted to East Coast time, but some of you, get the coffee out, and basically we're going to have a good time. I'll try to make it a little lively so you can, stay awake, that sort of thing. But what we really want to do is look at how to be successful in co-requisite classes. A little background. I've been working with AMATIC for like 25 years. I've known most of the past presidents, know the current president. I've been really working with mathematics for like 25, 30 years. One of my expertise is to figure out how to make students become more successful learners. Other expertise is going on different colleges and universities and doing an assessment of their math, not really the math departments, this is assessment of how to make students more successful. I've done several quality enhancement plans where we really dug deep down into mathematics to figure out how to help students become more successful. Worked a lot with students with disabilities in math. In fact, like I said, last week I was out in Washington State, and that's what it was. I was at a disability conference. It was a unique one in that they invited the math faculty too. So we had we had faculty from the math and disability coordinators. It was great because we could really talk about how to make students more successful. Written several books. Most recent one, well, it's not the most recent one, it's the Winning in Math text. And basically it's in the 7th edition. It's videos, did some CDs. That's enough, presented at MATIC and now was called NAID for years. So what we want to do today is look at how to help people design co-requisite courses. I'm going to go into some details of some of the different designs I've seen around the state. I'll be mentioning different colleges that I've worked with. I usually don't mention names because sometimes some of the things we talk about is confidential about the college. And then at the end, we're going to hopefully have some time just to have some discussion of how you're going to set it up. So the way we're having this set up is that John will be fielding some of the questions. I already give him and Pat permission to break in, as I call it. If there's a bunch of questions coming up saying we didn't understand what you said, we'll deal with it right then. If there's some that's going in the past, then we'll deal with that too. So we can wait or we can break in. And I got to say it, appreciate you. It's ironic. I got to say this, it's ironic that most of the people that chimed in are not from the East Coast. So that means you really got up early. So let's go ahead and start. And I'll be flipping between this and later on I'm going to pull up some syllabus that we actually did and we'll talk about those from the beginning. So this should be there. Right, here we go, same thing. So we kind of talked about this already. I'm going to do a little bit of an agenda. And if I talk about the agenda, you're going to get some of these. Start thinking about what you want to do and how it basically affects you and how it affects everybody else. First, I'm going to get into the changing variables of academic success. A long time ago, we used a lot of charts by Bloom. Now it's changed, and I'll talk about that. Definition of co-reqs. I'll go through several definitions of co-requisite courses. I will not do all of them. Frankly, I don't know all of them. I just know quite a few of them. But one thing we do know is that the co-requisite courses are basically the new developmental ed courses. Because a lot of students are going into these courses and credit courses that normally would be in developmental education. I'm pretty sure that's why Paula asked me to talk about this. And some of the skills that we learned in the work with students in developmental ed courses are going to be applied to the co-reqs because they have to, because that's what we have. Reasons for mathematics co-reqs, I'll go through that a little bit. How co-req courses affect college. It's going to affect your college. I mean, all your college. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They just think it's going to affect the math department. No, it's going to affect everybody. And like I said, like designs, we talked about that already. Determining math assessments. I'm going to get into assessments. In the past, we did some, but now with the co-reqs, you got to do them. We got to figure out as fast as possible, who do we need to help? You know, a lot of times we waited until they failed the first test to figure out who we need to help. We can't do that in the co-reqs because by the time they failed the first test, they're pretty much gone. Who are the stakeholders we can work with? I'm going to go over the algebra skills that some people have said. What do they need? This would be controversial because when we start talking about college algebra, what we really need in there, well, we're going to say everything, but maybe not. Then contents of the co-requisite courses, you know, what do you put in there? And really hitting the labs. A lot of the courses, the co-req courses themselves, are going to be pretty much the same as you have. The co-requisite labs are what really saves the course. Now, if they're technically placed in there and they should have been in college algebra or pre-calc, that's okay. But most of your students won't be. We're going to talk about the math lab and learning resource centers. Boy, you got to make friends with them. You're already friends. You got to take them to lunch. You got to do something because we're going to get in some situations where students that will be in some of the co-requisite courses just don't have the skills. Just plain don't have the skills and what we can do with them. Determine which students may or may not be successful. That's going to be interesting because what they're thinking is that I'm in the class, I'm going to be successful. And what skills, math skills to review, you know, how do you test? How do you grade? You know, what is this? What's going on here? Supplemental resources. Oh, yes. We need a lot of supplemental resources. And the math study skills training. And then I'll do a summary. So this is kind of like an overview. You may pick out a few things that you think is the most important. John will let me know if he wants me to speak more on that. But that's kind of like the big picture of what we're going to do. Now, here it is. Here's the research again. If you see me, you've seen this chart many, many times. Some people going, I'm tired of seeing the chart. I said, well, it's changed. Because in the old days, we had placement. And some colleges still do in some states. And from the old days, basically, the rule of thumb from Bloom's theory was about 50% of the grade is based on placement. What's happening in some of our co-requisite courses now, like California, they are not allowed to do any placement at all. You got that? At all. Nothing. Okay? So they just using the old Southern term, y'all come. And basically they're signing up for college algebra. And later on, I'll talk about some of the colleges out there don't have college algebra. They have pre-calc, which is similar to North Carolina. So that 50% of the variance, which has changed now a little bit, you may not even have that. So how are we going to make that up? The new research on affective characteristics, which is the study skills, strategies, techniques, motivational ideas, attitudes, used to say 25, but the new research is saying it's up to 41% of the variance. And if you look at that closely, some people are saying that it's more important now to make students better learners than looking at the 25% variance of quality instruction. Well, my comment on that is we're already good instructors. How much better can we get? So if we're going to make up for the lack of placement, what are we going to have to do? Well, we're going to have to make the students better learners. And if you look at that quality instruction again, we're going to have to really train our tutors, learning support staff, look at the whole design of the models. When we get to disability issues, accommodations, it's going to be really interesting now. So this is kind of like the big picture in your head. Where are we going to get the resources? Where are we going to get the information to be successful in the co-recs? Because a lot of it, they're not ready. Now, some co-recs will get to it. They have to go through some modules or pass a certain level of placement and get in. That's a little bit better. But again, look at this, get an idea of where you are, and start looking at the variables. Some research. And I'm doing the research up front because when we start looking at how we're going to change things based on research, this first one on self-efficacy, that's what Julie Phelps, Linda Zintek, and Fong did. They're looking at now that math self-efficacy is about 35 or 36% of the variance of the grade now. So now I'm giving you hints of what to do. We have to get more into the self-efficacy, making students believe they can do math, teaching toward more self-efficacy itself to help students become more successful. That's what we got to do. This is an interesting research. I just throw it up here because they did some neurological research on students doing math homework. What they found out, it's interesting, that when people started thinking about doing math homework, it activated the pain sensors in their brain. So when our students say, oh, I don't want to do homework, it makes me feel bad. In some cases, they're probably right. So what we're looking at here is that a lot of students in the past activated the pain sensors, led to procrastination to reduce the pain, but we can't procrastinate in co-recs. So one of the benefits of having the co-requisite lab is we immediately start doing homework, because that's what the other research says on this one. Once they started doing the homework, started doing the math, the pain went away. So the idea here is, as fast as possible, have them start doing the research on the information here, and fast as possible, start doing homework. This is a Linda Zintek study on the affective characteristics of 41%. So you see where we're hitting already. Intercorrelations, I did this a long time ago, of anxiety, achievement, study skills, locus of control. What got me is they're all intercorrelated. You know, if you reduce anxiety, you improve study skills. If you improve study skills, you reduce anxiety. If you get a more locus of control, which is more self-efficacy, basically study skills becomes more successful and anxiety goes down. So what we're getting at is looking at all these different areas here, and hitting a few. The readiness, behavior, and foundations of mathematics. Interesting, another study. Placement was the #1 predictor. It still is. Then study behaviors was #2. So you're getting the research. And the reason I'm doing this is because it's for you, and it's also for your administration. They're going to be saying, why are you doing these certain things? And it's based on research. And one of these last ones, they did some research in 2017. Students indicated that 71% of their interference to college success was math and strategic learning and economics. In other words, the math course had some trouble. I didn't know how to learn, and I didn't have the money. So the money thing we might not be able to take care of as much, but the mathematics and the learning, we can. We can make it where students become more successful. We just got to know that this is the #1 barrier. The last one I'm going to go over before we get into some other areas is this math anxiety performance link. This was 2017. And what it really says is this. This was a study across the world on STEM and anxiety. Across the world now. This is from the University of Chicago and the Economic Cooperation Development of Paris. What they started looking at is anxiety is killing STEM programs. Anxiety is having difficulty with math programs, okay? And they're looking at even high-achieving students in Japan had anxiety and had trouble. And who transmits the anxiety? Teachers, parents. So we've been talking about anxiety for years and years and years and years. Now it's becoming more important. And they also said it's bi-directional. You can see that. You know, does anxiety cause poor math skills? does having poor math skills cause anxiety? The answer is yes, yes, yes. We don't know which way it goes. All we know is happens. And they also is talking about, no one solution fits everything. The other thing I'm going to talk about real quick is, as I went around the country talking about co-requisites, we got into the anxiety of the students, because this is how it goes. Student first thinks, oh, I can skip developmental. Oh, I can go to college algebra. Oh, I can go to pre-calc or whatever it is. And then they look at the syllabus when they get in the class and go, oh my goodness, what the heck's this stuff? And they're going, oh my goodness, I can't do this. And that's true. Some of them. Now, some of them will go, yeah, this is great. I'm glad about this. I'm in the class. What I'm talking about now is I'm having instructors that I'm talking to who have anxiety. They're going, what the heck I'm going to do with these students that should be in elementary algebra, and they're in my college algebra class. And even some cases, they're in my pre-calculus class. So the anxiety is there on both sides. So we just can't not do the math anxiety for students. That's why we're going to have some meetings, some discussions on the anxiety of the instructors. I've already had them telling me what's going to happen. How am I going to teach these people? And in some states, they may even have people with pre-algebra that are going into college algebra, or I should say pre-calc. So just think about when you're working with your faculty, we got to deal with that anxiety too. That's a real important thing. Now, a little more research. I'm going to go through this real quick because we want to get to the other part. What this basically shows that when we put study skills in different classes, it worked, period. I'm just going to say that because the research says that again. Also, what some people are doing, the Dana Center basically, Yuri Trites in that group is saying we're going to teach a co-requisite study skills class. This is more research I did many years ago where we took students that were in an algebra class, put them into a separate math, I should say life skills college assessed course that taught math study skills. I got to say that taught math study skills. You can see the pilots, the success rates of the pilots compared to the non-pilots. So that's enough of the research, but you're getting the point. Now you should be looking at, and I would recommend start writing down some ideas of how you can help students become more successful. There we go. Definitions of co-recs. I'm just going to do a couple of these. Blending the content courses with a credit course bearing that's basically developmental. In other words, credit course, developmental course, we're going to put it together. Based on test scores, some developmental students are enrolled in the next credit course. Yep, that's true. So you may have developmental students, non-developmental students. All students are enrolled in the next course or developmental. Sometimes that's not true, sometimes it is. Courses could be combined of elementary algebra, intermediate, which is maybe in Florida. Florida is the only one I know that intermediate is a elective credit course, not a math elective. Not a math credit course. Of course, the most famous ones now, intermediate in college algebra and statistics and liberal arts. One course in a lab, one course in tutoring. This is just definitions. The National Math Summit definition, you can kind of look at this real quick. The co-requisite is an instructional strategy whereby undergraduate students are enrolled in a college level course paired with intervention. It didn't say course, intervention support programs that supports the learning in that college level course. You're getting the picture. And as we start going through this, I'm going to go through some reasons why, then a little bit more into some alternatives. Start thinking about which ones are best for you, because there are going to be several. And based on your state, you may be mandated to do some. Based on your state, you be mandated to do others. So how do we get into co-recs? Here we go. 20 years ago, I figured most of this out. I took students and looked at them. They started in a pre-algebra class, went to elementary, went to intermediate. Around 50% pass rate for each one of them. So how many students got through all three courses without failing? 12 and a half, we're rounding off to 13. So that's where the whole thing started. Why do we make them go through all the developmental courses? In some cases, it's necessary. In some cases, it wasn't. Even if you have, let's say, a intermediate algebra and a college algebra, you lost half, basically, in one course, lost half in the other. And this is really important. So I end up discussing this, like I said, 10 or 15, 20 years ago. And here's my question. This is a real good one now. And it is a tricky question. Ready? How do you have a course or make a course to have a 100% pass rate? So how do you make a course where you have a 100% pass rate? I'm going to give you about 5 seconds to think about that one. So how do you do it? And I know you're thinking. Okay, if you're in a group, say something. Of course, we can't hear you, but that's okay. Here's your answer. You don't have them take it. Let me say that again. You don't have them take the course. And that's what's happened with the co-recs. And that's also happened with the redesigns. What co-rec courses are important, what redesigns are important, what math skills are important. So the answer is, if you skip the course, you got 100% pass rate. That's what they're talking about. Decrease in development ed students, we know that. Political reasons, why play twice? When I worked with a lot of colleges, I don't know if this is yours or not, it's basically this. They are proud on the reduction of the developmental students. Presidents sometimes brag about, we don't have any. And basically in some of the states, they still require, even in California, you can still take a developmental course. In Florida, people keep saying we don't have it. We still have it. The thing is, you can skip them. You can skip them. Okay, some students have a higher pass rate for the courses compared to the 2 or 3. Yeah, if I have somebody who's right at the top at intermediate algebra, right at the top, and I give them support and put them into a college algebra, they'll have a higher pass rate. Just because of life. What I mean by life is if you take a course for let's say for 3 months, what happens is you may get sick, family illness, that sort of thing. So it does work. It does work in some cases. Get through math faster? Yes, it does. Better success rates in stats and liberal arts. Whoa, I did this a while ago. Your stat courses in liberal arts have a higher pass rate in college algebra. Ours were around 78% in stats and liberal arts compared to about 45 to 50. So the more students we get in there, the overall pass rate goes up. Now, which students don't succeed? Florida did some research on this, not with co-recs now. They did some research on what happened to placement. And what they had and discovered is about 18% of some of the math students who would have got through starting to lower level courses aren't now because they're going right into intermediate. So what we've got to look at is who is it affecting? Usually it's going to be a lower level student. Now, less number of classes with W's and repeaters? Yes, less number. More collaboration with faculty? Yes. Think about these strategies now. Increased need for advisors. Increased need for advisors. It's confusing. Increased need for faculty over 18 hours. Because most of the time, if you're only 18 hours, have a bachelorate degree in mathematics, you can teach developmental. Now we'd probably slide them into the co-rec courses. Need for more universal design. This is good. This is working out. Okay. Reduce time to complete math. You got that. Students have more financial aid. Less money for state. What is that right? Yeah, less money for state because you're not taking the developmental courses. You're not having repeaters. Less success rate in low-level math courses. We talked about that too. More failure. That's what we're finding out. Your college algebra course, if it was a pre-calc, will have more failures. However, if you do the 0.5 times 0.5, they don't. In other words, if you combine intermediate and that, and more students taking stat way and quant way, that's good ones. Stakeholders. Quickly, get your advisors to help you, institutional research to track it, administration to help you. You see what I'm doing. Academic support. I'm going to hit that again. Academic support, math support, tutors, et cetera. Okay, college-wide meeting. You need that. So this is kind of the preliminary things. Let's go. Different designs now. Kind of look at these and see what we're doing. You know, it's a co-requisite course where you use test scores or modules to place them in there. If you have some kind of modules, you're in college algebra. If you don't, you're not. One course for all students. Yeah, I got to replace in Morehead State. 1 6-hour course and a course on liberal arts. Works really well. 3-hour courses for students with volunteers requiring a tutoring. That doesn't work, basically. 1 3-hour course for students with required computer lab, not working that well either. Because how are you going to get them to learn material they don't even know in the computer lab? And sometimes they can. 1 3-hour course for students with required 1 hour, 2-hour lab, that does work pretty well. And I'm just going to jump to the one that's mainly the main one. It's a 1 3-hour course for students with required 2-hour lab on the course for all students. Now, some states you can't do it. When I was working with Virginia, they couldn't do that. Now, what they said is you can't force the students to go in there. You can't force them to go in there, okay? And they said, well, we don't want to. Then I said, what's the pass rate of your college algebra and pre-calc? Not good. Well, why? Well, we want to get them in there. One place has 2 instructors for all courses and labs. Whoa. The reasoning was this. Well, if they're doing intermediate algebra and college algebra, we already had the 2 instructors. Now they'll stick both instructors in the college algebra at the co-rec. Hey, same instructor, different instructor for teachers. You know, I'm going through this pretty fast, but you're seeing the picture. What are we doing? How we're helping out? This is controversial. Ready? Pass both. You got to pass the co-rec and the lab course. Students withdraw from one, got to withdraw from both. Financial aid issues. Yes. Okay. This is kind of like designs that you can pick out and look at it and see. And we did a couple of these already. Students can fail the support course and pass the credit course. That's what most people do now. They can basically, you know, fail the co-rec and pass the regular course, they'll pass them on. I'm just going to go down to the bottom. Instructional needs to change philosophy. This can't lecture. It's not going to work. Now, embedded tutors, supplemental instruction, academic coaches, mentors, advisors, all this can be time, you know, kind of get into the system. You can get all these and look at these. So you cannot do everything I said. Nobody does all this. The question is, what works best for you? What design works best for you? And what we're finding out mainly is the 3-hour, 2-hour model, or the 5 or 6-hour model where everybody goes into one course itself. So now you're getting a picture of everything here. So now let's look at it. Now you're into the college algebra. This gets interesting when I deal with some of the states and some of the faculty. This was great when I worked in California. So it's either a college algebra or pre-calculus course. What skills can you eliminate? Uh-oh. That was good. That was a good talk. Because what we're looking at in college algebra, do we need everything to go to the business calc, to the pre-calc? Had a great discussion on that. They kept on trying to pull me in, tell me, Dr. Knowlton, what do you think? My answer was, what do you think? So the first step in looking at these courses is this. What can you eliminate from college algebra that is not required by the state? Got that? That is not really necessary. Conics is one of them we knocked out. Okay, nice thing, people liked it, but not necessary, because what you're trying to do is free up more space for learning in the college algebra class to start to teach intermediate algebra. So we start from the top. What can we eliminate and get out of that course, even though this got into personal preferences, got into discussions, et cetera, we finally did it. We got some of the stuff out of there. What is actually needed for intermediate algebra skills for college algebra? That's another syllabus review. You got the syllabus in front of you. You're looking at it. You're going through. You have a discussion. What can you knock out? What can you knock out? Of course, everything's important. Everything's important. But what we can't do is teach information that's in intermediate algebra that's not needed for college. Again, we're making space. What kind of space can we make? Then elementary algebra skills, what's needed there? What skills must we teach? Which skills must we teach? And that are necessary for the intermediate, that are necessary for the college. So we're doing a whole curriculum review almost within the system. Pre-algebra skills. This was an easy answer. None. We're not teaching pre-algebra skills in our college algebra class. There's no room for it. Will you have students in there who need pre-algebra and some elementary algebra skills? Yeah, you will. Later on, we're going to talk about what are you going to do with those students? And that is the question a lot of times. Now, when we start looking at designs, what we have to find out is which math and study skills diagnostic assessments must be given in the courses. See the word must be given, because before, when we had placement, we had somewhat about this level of skills in the class. Every once in a while, a few outliers over here. Now what happens when you open up the door, if you're not using the modules, or even if you are, you're gonna have about this much room now. So how big is it? Where are these students? So we start looking at those areas. Are you gonna use some diagnosis by XYZ? Are you gonna use Alex? It's pretty good diagnostic. Can you use my math lab to figure out where they are? Or you can use some WebAssign. Or you can use Hawk's Learning System. Like years ago, we used paper and pencil. Kind of antiquated today, but we did in our math areas. On the first day of class, we gave a paper and pencil assessment. And what it really was, if it was for, we'll pick intermediate algebra. It was a watered down, like 20 questions from the final exam of elementary. If it was college algebra, it was watered down, like 15 questions, I think, from intermediate algebra. We wanted to know immediately, and we did at our college. Immediately, we did that the first day. We scored it, actually, Scantron, not the best way, but what we wanted to know, if there was 15 questions on the little assessment for college algebra, how many of the students get right? They got 14 right, they got 13 right. Great, you're in the right class. You got 1 right. You got 2 right. We got a problem. I mean, and we told them up front, we got a problem. We didn't make them leave because they can belong in the class, but we told them we have a problem. Now what we're looking at that is the idea of aggregate. In other words, when we do a lot of these assessments, what is the aggregate skills they don't have? So what we're trying to narrow down is what should we be teaching in the co-rec? What do we got to teach? What do we do just in time? Without doing an assessment, we don't know. We don't know. And again, what level's too low? If you're using Alex, you may go down low, and basically you're not even going to teach that. And then we use in the math study skills evaluation, which I got my website up there, is for free. And basically it has no math on it. It's going to tell them the study skills. And most students don't have that good of study skills. So what's happening now is we're going to say, okay, we're going to teach you study skills. Why do we got to teach you study skills? We got to make you faster and better learners, period. You know, us instructors are basically pretty good once we know what we need to teach. And that's what the assessment's for. What we're looking at now, and now you can flash back to that balloon picture, is the students aren't good at learning. I mean, most students, how can I say this? In high school, learning's inside the classroom, and college is outside. In the old days, we would say, how fast is a intermediate algebra, college algebra course compared to high school? 4 times. 4 times as fast. Now, you're in a co-rec, and you're supposed to be in elementary algebra or intermediate. How fast is it going to go now? 5 times, 6 times. Okay. So the idea is we still got to make them better learners. We still get more resources and help. So let me just kind of move on. You get this picture. Determining which skills will be taught in college algebra. I mean, that's what we're looking at. What are you going to teach? Determining which skills will be taught in the co-requisite labs. Now, right now, you listen to me, you're just kind of maybe being overwhelmed, but you just got to just kind of write down, what are we going to teach in co-rec? What are we going to do just in time? And if I do that aggregate assessment, and almost every one of the programs I mentioned does that, and a bunch of people have trouble in factoring trinomials, then we're going to have to teach that basically in the co-rec lab. We can use computers too, but what we found out is teaching it in the co-rec lab, if most of them have that problem, is better. And then what's just in time? That's when you got to do your curriculum and going, okay, we got to do this, they got to do this, we're going to teach it now. And the math study skills that we're talking about, that is the first 6 to 8 weeks, because we got to make them better learners faster and quicker as possible, okay? And then the tournament skills will be taught in the math lab. Oh boy, this is good. When I worked with several colleges, we brought in their math lab staff into the curriculum design workshops. They were delighted. They became part of the group, especially in California when y'all come in the class, that sort of thing. They were happy. So we started figuring out, okay, when we do the diagnostic, we're not going to teach this in the college algebra. We're going to stick it over in the math lab. We're going to make up a syllabus for them. And they were so happy, because if you worked in math labs, the first 3 weeks basically is dead for most colleges. Because why? The students haven't flunked the first test yet. So they got a bunch of people hired over there and they're waiting. Now they're not waiting. We're actually having them go right over there. The question is, how fast can we catch them up?
So, Paul, somebody else had a question also.
Sure.
So, how do colleges deal with a topic like factoring, where it is, say, entirely covered in an elementary algebra course, but then used within intermediate and college algebra frequently?
That's a good question. So what happens now, if it's a lot of students, you're going to teach that in the co-req class, because you got to drop down to the co-req class and teach that. If it's a few students, you're going to go into your math labs and go into your computer programs to teach it. So they got the point. You know, what can you teach? What can't you teach? Factoring is essential for everything. So you're going to teach that, Mike, in the co-req fast, immediately. Because if they don't have the factoring skills, it's like we're going to teach you Spanish 3 and you don't know Spanish 2. So that's a good question. And that's when you design it and figure out where it goes. Now, when you get into the math lab, what are you going to do? How are you going to test? What's your scores? What's your grades? We'll get to that. Exit points. This is going to be a good one. I worked with another college. What happens when they take their first math test in college algebra and they make a 35? What are we going to do? What's the probability of them passing the course? Well, you know that. Not much. So I worked with one college that had late start developmental classes, late start support classes. So if he didn't do well in the first test, we have an option for him to go into a course without a penalty. Got that? We just transferred him, called administrative drop and add. That's important. That's real important. And they did it several ways. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm saying you can do it. And that really got them out, because what we don't want is how can I say this politely? We don't want students in our college algebra who basically are not going to pass. What we want to do is give them an alternative. They may take it, they may not. Now I'm going to go to a syllabus, okay? And we're going to take a look at this one right here. This is for the college algebra one. Here we go. This is a course, I kind of knocked this out. This is a college algebra. Now what's happening is they decided what they're going to teach in college algebra already. Then they started saying, what are we going to do in the co-requisite classes? The first couple of weeks, the first week of class is take an intermediate algebra diagnostic. We're going to figure out immediately what they don't know so we can help them, that sort of thing. Then they're going to start teaching math and study skills. We start looking at the math diagnostic. What skills are we going to teach? I just mentioned that. They have that mentioned right in the syllabus here. And then they have some other programs where they can look at college algebra integrated reviews. What we're going to do there. Quickly doing that. Now, course contents. Now, this is the co-req course. You ready? Co-req. Course of study skills, they're talking about that in the first couple, 5 or 6 weeks. They're going to integrate that. They're going to actually do a lecture on that. And they're going to have them apply the study skill strategies to note-taking, to the information. So if I'm teaching factoring in there, trinomials, binomials, or whatever it is, we're going to teach you how to learn that. Then when they come down here, and we're going to make this available for you, this is what they're going to teach in the co-requisite lab. Expressions versus equations and inequalities. it took us a while to figure this out. We're going to teach polynomials. We're going to go down to quadratics. This is answering that person's question, I'm pretty sure. We're going to do radicals. This is what we're going to do. So the idea is we have that designed here in the co-rec, and they basically get a grade for it. We're going to test them. It's going to work out fine if we can get into this and help them out. So now you're getting a little idea of what the design looks like. And, you know, you may be thinking about what's not in there. Linear equations. We're not going to do that. That's going to be reverted back to the math lab, that sort of thing. So that's a good point right there. So now we're getting into this one. So the college algebra, you start, you narrow down, you get as much out, you add to, and it'll be fun talking to people because now you get some pet peeves in there. Liberal arts math, oh boy. This is not as difficult. You know, this gets fundamental. What do you need for liberal arts math? Intermediate algebra? Well, we found out the answer was no. No. You really didn't need any of those skills. Okay. Elementary algebra? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe a few skills. Yeah. Pre-algebra? Maybe. Maybe not. You know. And then it's the same question. Which math skills should be taught in the co-requisite? And some of the algebra skills need to be taught. Some of them don't. What study skills? Again, which in the math lab? Probably none. Most of these people are not referred to the math lab, you know, that sort of thing. And what we're finding out here, this is good. We start talking about students with disability and veterans. We found out that they were more successful going into liberal arts. A lot of times they got trapped into is basically in the college algebra sequence and they never got out. They never got out. That's the good thing about co-recs. They can jump in it and be more successful with more support. Again, what type of syllabus do we have? Let me go down to this one here. And we'll go right here. This is a mathematical reasoning and problem solving, liberal arts topics, you know, that type of math course. This is a 6-hour class. What they did is have everybody signs up for the class and they divide it up basically 3-3. 3 hours is actually lecture and 3 hours is actually the co-requisite lab. Some people like that, some people don't like it. Scheduling wise, it's very, very efficient. You just sign up for one. So what they're talking about is a 6-hour co-requisite lab. The course is taught by the instructor and is also by, this one's by a graduate student, but you could also have somebody who maybe has less than 18 hours if you, well, maybe not this one because you have to have the 18 hours for this one. So it could be taught by 2 different people. You get to the text, what they're using. These are the people who got into it. They're describing everything about who got in there. And now what they're doing a combination of teaching the area and teaching the study skills, teaching the area, teaching the co-requisite skills required. This is like an idea of how the syllabus would look, and they divided it up. So part-time in the co-rec, they're doing a lot of prerequisite skills at first, then later on, they're doing the study skills, and later on, they're doing the whole thing. It's almost becoming a tutorial thing. I'll show that in a minute. So basically here, what we're having is, again, a combined syllabus. What we found out for this type of course, it worked really well because it's not algebra based. They could do that and it's worked well. Now, stats, here we go. The only time when I talked to somebody about stats and prerequisites when I was at these colleges, they kept on saying, Knowlton, what do you need? And I said, well, I'll tell you what you don't need. Intermediate algebra. I mean, the Sullivan book, the Statistical Society of America, you all know this kind of. It's interpretation of data, not punching in numbers. We did have a discussion on it, and after about 10 minutes, they said, yeah, elementary algebra skills, maybe some for stats. You got to look at it and see. So what we're doing again, we're going through the syllabus. We're going through sequentials of what's going on. Next one, pre-algebra. Yeah, linear equations. Linear equations. I I actually sat in my stat class in my college because the chair was the person who started all the stats, and he wanted me to figure out, what do I use really in algebra? What do we use? And I'm good at stats. That was my major thing that I love doing. He says, I don't know if I go off on tangents and teach a bunch of other stuff. And what we found out that basically pre-algebra, some elementary algebra skills, and that's it. So you narrow it down. So what's taught in the co-rec? Some of those prerequisite skills. And you know I'm going to hit study skills again because we still got to make it more successful. The lab, probably not much. Again, veterans, students with disabilities were more successful in these courses. They didn't get caught in the algebra trap, so to speak, with them. Now, an issue came up, and this will come up with you too. I went stat way, made a good grade, now I'm going to be a business major. Okay, you're going back to the co-rec for college algebra. Well, I'm not going to use statistical, but I talked to influential people about this, so I won't name names. And what they said is that after finishing the stat one, when they went back and did the college algebra, they did a little better, not because the prerequisite skills, because they had more confidence in doing math. More confidence. I passed the stat course, I passed the liberal arts class. Okay, now I can go in and get into that real hard or STEM math course. And that's what I recommend. I recommend if the students are on the border, we get them to get to these courses first. In most colleges, if they pass the stat or the quantitative reasoning, they can graduate. That's what we want, graduate. Got that? Instead of getting into STEM sometimes and taking college algebra, basically. And we figured this out. You may take a college algebra, intermediate algebra 2 times, and after that, you tell yourself you're not worthy of being in college. We don't want that. We don't want that. And of course, you know, the more times you take an algebra course, the less chance you have to pass it. Be more true now when we get into this. So what are we going to do again? I'm going to show you a little bit of a syllabus in here. And like I said, you're going to have all this. This is a generic one I just made up for stats in any algebra course with support and homework that's computer-based. What I got into, this is a grading system. You can see we're actually grading everything, chapter exams. They're all together. They're all together. So the students see the worthiness of the co-rec. The co-rec has points. Otherwise, they don't show up. And again, we get into the chapters and we get into study skills. You got the point. And you can do generic things like this. You know, the exams, the courses, the exams, the course material, that sort of thing. So that gets pretty good. And then we want to go to, let's say, current slide again. So that's the statistics. Now we're going to go down to something else. And we hit this several times, and I'm going to hit it again. Co-requisites. This is how you make the courses successful. What do you do in the co-requisites lab? I've said this, I'm going to say it again. Start with assessment, a must. Start with review of developmental skills. Which ones? Based on your diagnostic. You know, start with course content. Basically, you can do credit content in there too. You're just in time. And I've said this again. You know, what is going to be just in time? What's going to review? Assessment of study skills. We already talked about that. So it's the idea is you're setting up your co-requisite course to be successful. We talked about this already too. The study skills, the 6 to the 8 weeks, give tests. We're actually test study skills. We actually give you questions such as define 3 different ways to reduce your anxiety. Define the note-taking system. Tell me how you're going to take the test. When you get in the co-recs, multimodality. We're going to have a diverse group of people in there with diverse learning modalities or learning preferences. You do it. Now look at this last one, co-rec. Teach first and computer support. A lot of people just went computer support and didn't work. So teach first, computer support, and then some tutoring later on. So you're teaching up front, computer support. When you get through a lot of that and you get them somewhat equivalent with the college algebra course, you're still going to do just in time. Got that? And then you can start tutoring. Okay? What you're going to end up with is tutoring and computer support. That's going to work. That's going to work. And then, like I said earlier, you got to give them a grade. Math lab support. Oh boy, here we go. Because I know we got about 10 minutes left. Is that about right? Oh, maybe a little less.
Yeah, about maybe 3 to 5 minutes.
Then we'll have questions. Okay.
But some questions just came in though.
Sure, go.
So what is happening in a lab, and what are students doing and learning, and what does it look like? And then there's a second question after you answered that one.
Okay, repeat that one again.
Let's see. So what is happening in the lab? What are students doing and learning, and what does it look like?
Good deal. We got two things. The co-requisite lab, what it looks like is the basic skills they need based on the diagnostics. The math lab, here we go. We got to catch them up in the first 3 weeks. Because if we don't catch them up, if they're really low skills, if we don't catch them up the first 3 weeks, which is before the first test, we may lose them. Okay? And what do you do with the students below that? What do you do with basically the students that are real low? That's where you switch them to other classes. That's sometimes where they may end up withdrawing and working in the lab. I mean, I hate to say that, you know, because we got to look at what's going to happen after they fail the first test. What are we going to do? Put them back in the lab. But the co-rec is already gone. So that's why you got your lab there to help you out. What happens if they fail the second test? And it's the same question we had before with our regular students. What are we going to do if they didn't do well on the first or second test? My question is, if you made like an 80, say, in the first test and made a 50 on the second test, well, you're in the right class. We just got to get you back into the labs and get you back in support. If you made a 30 in the first test and a 30 in the second test, we got to bail. We got to look at an exit point. We got to have a strategy. Because what I find out, if the students stay in those courses, most of them don't. They just withdraw. But if they do, they get more anxiety. So that's what we're looking at, this support. And I'm just going to do this one more thing, then we're going to open up for questions. With the math study skills evaluation, it's going to look at study skills strategies and techniques. You got that? It's going to give them a score. This person failed. It's great. Failing the math study skill evaluation is good, because now we can teach them strategies and techniques, and we can blame some of their problems with math on the study skill strategies. And this is a few more. These are just basic, you know, what did you do? Because this is set up where it's diagnostic. If you miss question one, we're going to tell you what page numbers to read in the math study skills text. So I'm going to stop right about now. And we're going to open up for questions.
So the second question that came in was along the lines of study skills that you just have been talking about, but are study skills for an inquiry-based, problem-based learning class the same as for a traditional structure of example and practice?
There's two things we can answer. One, general study skills don't work. Math studies skills do. And with the one you're talking about, when you do the diagnostic, we can tell you what math study skills to learn and help you out. Excuse me. You actually teach that in the co-rec, and you support it in the lab, and you support it in the course. Just like you're teaching the regular skills in the co-rec. Like we said, the factoring skills. Then it's going to be supported in the lab if we go in there and support it in the course. And then you're done right around midterm or a little less with the study skills. And basically, by midterm, we should have everybody caught up. Got that? Should be caught up with the class. So that basically what will happen is they're on track to go. Like I said earlier, I have some people in some colleges have an exit point at midterm. They'll technically at midterm go, yep, you're not doing well. Okay, we're going to do administrative drop and add and drop you into an intermediate algebra course that's 8 weeks without penalty. Get you out of the college algebra, get you out of the pre-calc. See what I'm doing? What we're trying to do is let them have that first time they take the course to be successful, even if we got to get them out. Some students will never get out. Now I'm sticking with it. So one of the last questions is, what happens when you have repeaters and you co-rex? And that's going to be interesting because now you have to go look at the grades. A couple of things you got to decide. One is, should they have been there in the first place? You know, that's really based on the first test and the second test. If not, you have to have a counseling session with them and say, look, if we still have developmental classes, which most people do, you may want to take it. Can you make them? No. Then they go, well, I'm going to take it again. Well, before you take it again, let's help you over in the, quote, Learning Resource Center in the math lab to build up those skills, because what you're taking is Spanish 3, and you hadn't had Spanish 2 yet. And that's the easiest way to me to explain it to students. You got Spanish 1, don't have Spanish 2, you got Spanish 3, you're in it, you understand some things, unless we go back and get that foundation. Now, the other thing I didn't mention is you can still have those embedded tutors and things like that. So anyway, that's kind of like my answer for that one. And it looks like we're up on the screen.
Oh yeah, so this is pretty much the signal for the end, the end here. But if anyone has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat room. And Paul has already agreed before the webinar to answer any of the remaining questions by email, and so I can send the questions and the responses out along with the recording link and the slides and the Word document that was showed today. So let's thank Paul in the chat room for the wonderful webinar today, and thank you to all of you for participating in today's AMATIC webinar. And if you'd like to support future AMATIC webinars, please consider becoming a member of AMATIC at bit.ly/join-AMATIC, and please remember to like AMATIC on Facebook at facebook.com/AMATIC, and recordings of past AMATIC webinars can be found at bit.ly/AMATIC-webinars. And I will make sure to send you the recording link along with any remaining questions and answers in the chat room, and all of the handouts as soon as they are available. And please, if you could take 2 minutes to evaluate the webinar content and the presenter today, Paul, at bit.ly/AMATIC87. That would be great. And whoop, there's my alarm saying it's almost time for us to be done also. But if you need email confirmation of your participation in this webinar, please fill in the optional section at the end of the evaluation, and I will make sure that you get your certificate as well. Whoop, there we go. So there are a few more questions coming in, but again, I will make sure that Paul gets all of those questions and all of them go out to you in an email. So.
Well, thank you for getting up early. And I saw a question about the registration. I'll